Okay, hi, I'm Todd from Ink and Timber Pens. I make unique wooden pens in my workshop in central Pennsylvania, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how to fill up a fountain pen with ink. Alright, so here I got a couple of pens that I've been using for a while and the ink has run out and they're ready for new ink. To get into the ink, of course, we've got to take the cap off. And then to get further into the pen, there'll be the section, which is the portion of the pen right behind the nib. We have the nib, we have the feed, and this is called the section. And that's going to unscrew so that we can get into the guts of the pen. Okay? So inside, we've got a reservoir for the ink to go into, which is called a converter. If you're not using a converter, most of my pens come with a converter, a piston converter. I'll get into that in a second. But you may find that you just have the ink cartridge. So this is a tube that comes ready filled with ink, and it's ready to go. Now, both of those are friction fit. There is a pin inside there that will puncture this tube or will receive ink from the converter, either way. But this one, it looks like I've used it a while ago, and it is it's got dried up ink that I can see on it. And it's a good idea when you're changing the ink to go ahead and clean it out and get rid of any of the old ink, particularly if you're changing colors. You would want to do this. Even if you're not changing colors, I would want to clean out the nib maybe every 2 or 3 times that I change the ink. So what I would do is remove the section. This is another screw, unscrew. Remove the section. So now all I'm left with just the feed and the nib. And I would simply take a glass of warm water and I would just drop that in there and leave it in the warm water for maybe an hour. You can see the ink comes out of there readily. It's just going to dissolve the ink. It's going to dissolve whatever crud might be in there. And over the course of an hour, that water will turn blue or black or whatever color you've been using. And basically the ink will just dissolve, and that's all you need to do. Okay, so if you leave that in there for an hour, you know, all that ink will dissolve. You take it out, you can dry it off, and you'll be ready to go. I have one of these plunger devices. I think they sell these in a pharmacy for, you know, cleaning out kids' ears or something. You can speed this whole thing up just to fill this with the warm water. Put that over the tiny feed and then just give it a squeeze. And you see what that's doing? That's just going to push all the ink out in a hurry. And this is going to run clear, usually in the course of, you know, 1 plunger full of water. That would speed things up, which is great for the sake of this video. If you're at home, you absolutely don't need one of these. You can simply soak it for an hour. It's going to do the same job as this. This is just going to speed things up a little bit for the video. Okay. So I've got that pretty well cleaned out. Dry it off. So we've got that cleaned out and it's ready to go. We're going to put that back onto the section. And then for this first pen, I'm just going to use a ink refill. Now, the way that this goes, there's a pin inside of there. You're simply going to push that in. And you just put a little pressure on it with your thumb and it's going to pop. That's how you know it's gone in. It punctures the tube. And it'll just take a minute or so for the ink to come down through. Now, because I just finished this one, it's going to run a little bit wet. There's some water still in there. I dried it off with a paper towel, but you can see the ink is just coming right through. And is working just fine. So let's call that one done and put that back together. And we've got this pen inked up and ready to write. For this one, same thing again. I'm not going to, this one I haven't let dried out. This one just ran out this morning. So again, it's got a different shaped section, but it's still the portion right behind the nib. We're just going to unscrew that. And again, it's going to reveal inside the piston converter. And I'm going to show you how to get ink into the pen with the piston converter. There's probably 3 ways to do this. So let's go through those one at a time. This is going to require bottled ink in order to use the converter. And again, it's just friction fit. So I'm just going to pull it apart, set that off to the side. This is my preferred way to ink this up. I feel like I don't get as much ink on my hands if I do it this way. Seems to work just fine. Try that off a little bit. So there's a piston inside here, a plunger. And so you basically use this like a straw. I'm going to dip this into the ink. And when I twist the top, it's going to pull ink out of the bottle and up into the converter. Sometimes, particularly if it's the first time, you'll want to do it twice. The first one kind of primes it, wets the parts in there so it gets a good suction and you get a good draw of ink. But you can see I've got that nice and full of ink there. So again, just going to dry off that to remove any ink. And then you put this back together. And that pen will, again, start writing after just a minute. This one had not dried out, like I said. This is only run out of ink this morning. So there's nothing dry in there, and it's just ready to write again. You don't need to clean it absolutely every time. So this can be put back together, and you'd be ready to go. But I wanted to show everyone a couple other ways to get the ink in the tube from the bottle. So I'm going to take this apart again. Let's just push all that ink back down. Get that out of there. Okay. So you don't have to take this apart if you don't prefer to. You can take the whole setup and you can draw the ink right through the nib. Now you have to submerge this at least as high as the, there's a filler hole at the top of the slit in the nib. So you've got to plunge it at least that deep. I'm going to turn it towards me so that I can see how deep it's gone. And you will see when I pull this plunger up. I'm going to do it twice. So I can fill that converter without taking everything apart. You are going to oversaturate the feed when you do it that way. Ink is going to go be all through there. And again, it's just a simple process of, trying to get any loose ink off of there to clean that up so that it's not going to get all over your fingers when you use it. So that'd be a second way to fill that up. And I'm going to show you a third way. Again, the third way is going to require one extra piece of equipment that you don't need, which is an ink syringe. Call it an ink syringe, but that's a pretty specific term. I got a whole, let's call these craft syringes. I got a pack of 30 of these off of Amazon in all different shapes and sizes. So one thing that you can do, and this is probably the cleanest way, sometimes I'll do this if I'm filling up ink at a show, particularly if I'm using a sample vial. Let me get these. If I'm using a small vial, it's hard to get all the works inside one of these small containers of ink, and it's easier to use the syringe. But probably guess, but I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to get some of that ink into the syringe. I'm going to take the empty converter, I'm going to open it up. And then I'm simply going to put the ink, and I'm just going to fill it up like that. You can get a nice full fill with the syringe. I'm going to take the extra ink that I have in there and just put it back in the bottle for later. Again, dry this off. Get any little ink that I dribbled there. That was probably not a great demo, but the result is the same. The ink is in the converter. Attach the converter to the section and nib. Screw the section back into the wooden pen. And this one has a magnetic cap, which is kind of fun. But that pen, again, will be ready to write pretty much right away. So that's 3 different ways that you can fill up your fountain pen with ink, and even a little demo about cleaning out the nib if you feel that you need to do that, if it's been a while or if you've left it sit a while and it's got some dried ink in the nib. It'll write better if you clean it out. So if you're having problems with the way the pen writes, that's usually the first thing to try. It's just to soak it in water for an hour and let all that ink out, let all that ink go away. So, all right, well, that's my video. If you have any questions, you can contact me through the website, and I'll look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.